beautiful people, and welcome to Drawing Down the Stars. I'm Snappy, and I'm joined today by my co-host and good friend, Dion. How's it going, Dion?
Reporting for duty.
And we have two special guests. We have Dr. Ammon from Lady Babylon 666 and Ryan 7. How's it going, guys?
Sergeant
Awesome.
Major.
Thanks for having us, Snappy. Appreciate it.
Amazing. So for you guys, you should all know by now Dr. Ammon and his incredible work over at Lady Babylon, Depacking the Mysteries. And you should also be familiar with Ryan 7 and his incredible work doing the similar stuff and looking at the tarot. Today, Dion, you have a wild presentation for us. You wanted to unpack some of this Christian nationalist conspiracy stuff that you've been seeing in relation to the recent assassination attempt on Trump. What's going on with all this wildness? Talk to us about this.
First of all, we got to send condolences out to real people that lost lives out there. You know, that's real. The conspiracy stuff is fake, but there's real people, there's lives were infected, and, you know, we got to send out condolences to those people. And trigger warning, if you're in politics, will offend you. If you have Trump derangement syndrome, or if you're on the other side, either way, you might get offended. We're gonna unpack some of the biblical prophecy, New Testament, Old Testament, concerning this Trump figure. We'll get into some Biden stuff, Rapunzel, all kinds of wild stuff. We're gonna have a wild time today. We'll have fun. So yeah.
Before we get into it, Ammon, I wanted to ask, what is your perspective on this? I've been noticing some weird comments around some of your stuff because you've been talking about Trump. What are your thoughts on the recent wildness?
Anytime, historically, if you just look at it from the historian's position, anytime a tyrant ascends the ladder and is placed above Lady Justice, there are, and there have always been multiple assassination attempts. The tyrant works with that power. It's a radiation from their power, and they work with it. He will come out, as every tyrant does, invincible. Yeah.
Wow. Scary stuff. All right, Dion, take it away.
Hit us with the picture.
Well, I must say to that, a picture, he is making an image, Donald Trump. He's making like a magical, he's turned himself into a talisman, and I don't think you'll be able to kill him so easily. I think that's my thought on that.
Oh yeah. He ain't going away that easy. And also, we're gonna speak on Biden too. You know, and hair. Biden and hair. It's something that has come up if you've studied any of Biden's stuff. It has a certain fascination. Bernice, Queen Bernice of Egypt, made a sacrifice of her hair to protect her husband in battle, and to Aphrodite, and put it in the temple, and it worked. But somebody stole that hair. And so, as a reward, she was placed in heavens as Bernice. You know, I don't know if anybody would like to comment on that.
That's a circumpolar constellation, and is quite important. Those are the undying stars because they never dip underneath the water. They're always spinning around that polar region. So they are like ultra important stars. Quite frankly, I've never really looked into this myth. But that little constellation shows up in lots of other people's myths. Lots of cutting off hair. I think Hercules is nearby, who is Samson in the Hebraic style stuff. So, you know, he has his hair cut off. So, you know, a lot of these things are interchangeable. It'll be a lady's hair in one tale and then a man's hair in another tale. But yeah, Samson, Heracles, etc.
They found some of these locks that were dedicated. The dedication of locks is not something magical. And they found a bunch of these in that dig off the coast of Spain, and they looked at what was embedded in the locks, and guess what it is? It's a burning purple. It's lovely, gorgeous stuff. I think it's a gorgeous rite. The dedication of that purple is a gorgeous thing. Remember those Medusae. Those Medusae are valued because of that poison that's in their hair, right? Oh God, I love it. I love the Bronze Age echoing that you get, and that's why, Project Talos, right? Oh, I love this stuff. Love it. Dion, go man.
So I just wanted to add to that. What Ammon is referencing is they did a recent dig where they found one of these Scythian priestesses, and when they tested the locks of hair that were made as an offering, they were coated in a wax that was filled with scopolamine as well as several other chemicals. But scopolamine was the big one that they were freaking out over, and datura.
There's something initiatory as well about cutting off hair, that there's something going on, that you're going to a next level, you're going to the next stage of something.
It's a form of mourning, some people could say. Now, this plant on the screen right here is Rapunzel plant. You've heard of the old saying, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair? And did you know it's based off a plant, a purple plant? That's it right there. Rapion is another name for it. Go to the next pic. There's Rapunzel, the tower right there. She has her hair leaning out of the tower. Notice the colors of the tower. It looks like an Amanita mushroom to me. Just saying. This is an artistic representation. But the thing is, she has her hair. That magical power of the mane there. It would be cut and given to Aphrodite in the Bernice story. In Samson, it takes away somebody's magical powers. This magic hair of the goddess back in the day had different types of powers. These are allegories and symbolic stories right here for something else taking place.
Have you managed to link that tale to Coma Bernice's? Because that tower might be the Axis Mundi, and that hair might indeed be Coma Bernice's.
Well, that would make sense. And then what happens is the witch cuts her hair to take away the power. That's part of the mythology. And it deals with purple as well. And the purple plant, Rapunzel, is edible. It's used in salads. It's used medicinally for swelling of the mouth, for different forms of mouth infections. This purple plant is called Rapunzel. So there's a lot to unpack in this story here. But let's go to the next pic.
I just want to add too, when I think of a lot of this hair stuff, right? Immediately, there's all these references to binding and unbinding magic. Those who wear their hair long in locks, this is a sign of being bound, usually to a god like Saturn, or you see this with with people like Samson later on. But then the shaving of the head, you see this in the priests of Isis, and then you see this among the slaves as an unbinding ritual, as a breaking of chains. So it's kind of interesting, the connection with this.
Yeah, you have magic going both ways. The shaving or the accumulating of the hair. Or like in Siki, they're forbidden to cut their hair.
And it's for the same thing. It's a bind because they've taken Amrit, which is it's their holy drug kind of thing, yeah. And they've sworn an oath to uphold Siki, right? And then they become baptized Sikhs. And part of that is the kesh. You don't cut your hair, In
Samson, who's something of a solar allegory, his hair's cut, and it's like his power's taken away with that. So it's probably, there's some seasonal stuff bound up with this as well, no doubt. And if you're going to relate it to this lion image here that looks a lot like the strength card from the tarot, or Heracles' labor of telling the lion to shut up because he keeps talking. Shut his mouth off.
Well, this is a famous, we're going to get into the next subject. Before we get into Samson's hair, we'll get into Samson's riddle. So first, the way the story takes place, he wrestles a lion, kills him, goes to a banquet. There he asks a riddle of the men at the dinner banquet, and his wife gives up the answer to them, though. It's part of it's a funny story. But hit the next picture, and I'll show you the riddle.
This riddle has haunted me for about 3 or 4 years. I will talk about it later, but it follows me around this thing.
Why don't you read it for us?
Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet.
And so people posit that that's honey that grew on the dead lion, on the carcass of the lion. And that it was psychoactive honey at that.
Don't we see the same exact thing within the Greek mystery with Heracles, where there's the lion, that there's the honey that's inside of the dead lion carcass? Ammon, is that not part of the Heracles myth?
No. You can't get, I'm trying to think if there are any examples of it on his side. That intoxication from that honey that comes from the lion or the bull, in some places it's a bull, is definitely a theme, right? It's from Uranos. It's that stuff that you put onto Hesiod's mouth, baby, when you're in the temple of the muse. So that intoxication is definitely there. I would propose, though, that this may be referring to their polypharmaceutical system of dispensing bodily communion, and that you may be looking here at that sweet, sweet seed.
Yeah.
Right.
So I've got to say, I need to interject here, Snappy, sorry. But there's a lot of it in Mithraism. There's a central lion figure, like a lion-headed, is essentially Aeon, the Leontocephalid, or something like that, call him, the lion head. And he's similar. He's surrounded by bees and blows fire into a cauldron, essentially, a crater, and that's the mixing potion. I've also seen it in Egypt, where they have a mummified cat, sometimes a mummified lion, and look, they have a bee on its forehead there. And it's the same with Mithraism. They have charms that are lions with a bee on their head. As far as I could trace it, clearly hallucinogenic honey, but there was something of the buzzing of bees and being connected to the souls of the other world. I can only imagine that sometimes you get oral hallucinations that are like fizzes and buzzes, and as you enter these other states. That's what I'm imagining. That's what I've heard.
The buzzing of the bees, the Melissae, who are the prophetesses, that's you don't get to oracular knowledge without that intoxication that the priestesses who are called the bees are going through. It's definitely there. It's one of the media, right? One of the individual transports of the chemicals that they're using within their rites. The Mithraic rites are no exception. Yeah, definitely.
Makes me think of also the hymn to the Mother of Gods, when Julian is talking about Helios as that beast that instills them. The mother sends Helios down to earth as a distilled drink that causes Gallus to castrate himself in mania. But he's that beast that lifts him out of the waters, right? And we know that theriac is a drug, right, Ammon?
You're silent, mate. Muted, buddy.
You're muted, Ammon.
Muted.
It's not, thanks. Sorry, I'm an idiot. It's not just, the theriac isn't just a drug. It's a multi-component antidote that you pair with the death inducer. And that's why they're going into these places where you can perform these rites to shoot yourself into the ion and pull yourself back. And it's definitely that theriac. And
I'd like
they're
to
competing. Hang on. They're competing. So it's so prevalent that they are competing to get it. The Roman emperors are getting it and using it and storing in their own libraries the recipes for these compound beasts. Yeah, I love it. Oh, you got to read Nicander. He's all about that. Yep.
I'd say this to add to that, the symbology there is of that lion is some kind of middle of the day symbology. It's Leo the lion, hottest part of the year. The Mithraeus use it as a symbol of the conflagration, the big burning at the end. It's how you get to this ionic place. And this lion is ionic. He really represents the ion here, in that he is the moment. The moment is now. That is a reflection down here of that ionic eternity out there. So the lion devours the moment in the moment. So it's a reflection.
In the Neoplatonic system, right, Helios is the absolute center, the absolute middle, right? And that's why he's the most important and the absolute mover, according to Julian. Because as that middle, he can initiate everything. It's the one who can give you, right? It's that Lucifer. He gives you what you want, right? Oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. Dion, take us back on track here.
Next pick. Go to the next pick, please. So Solomon's hair. We've talked about Medea's hair. We're talking about hair. Bernice's hair. We're talking about Rapunzel, the hair. Did he have some kind of power in his hair? Samson. When his hair was cut, these powers went away. You know, and so there's a lot more going on here. Go to the next pick. So in some artworks, it's not just the hair that gets cut. Sometimes it's the head that gets cut. So here we have John, whose head is cut off by Salome, or for Salome, and put on a charger. And then the head flies around and prophesizes. Because the head or the hair has magic power.
It's an old shamanic motif, isn't it, as well, having the head cut off and still doing things. It's. I mean, we still say in Britain, oh, he's off his head, never mind. You know, you've had a lot of drugs and you're off your head.
It goes back also to the satyr plate, right? This is deep satyr Saturnian magic, right? Saturn is the one who cuts. Kronos is that agricultural god, and part of the rites is you make the satyr plate, which is the mixed plate where you cut everything up and you mix it around. And this is a fundamental idea. At these rites, you would cut the heads off people and switch them with bodies with animals. This is where you get the wolves. This is where you get all these doves and stuff. They're cutting up and they're mixing people apart and putting them together. The centaurs. It's a huge magical moment, and it's brought about through this Saturnian magic and this cutting magic. Like, one of the other big things is that plate. It's not just a plate. It's also the tympanum, which is the sacred drum, and the donkey skin and the Aegis skin, right? That impenetrable barrier of Athena, right? Her hymen. You know, it's like there's so much going on. You cut the head off and you put it on the hymen. What is going on here? Saturn is also the castrated god. Ammon, unpack some of this.
The oldest literary representation we have is the Orphic beheading of the tyrant. That image of the loss of one's head due to turning your back on that son. Yeah, that is a crime that the universe punishes, and it punishes it through Orpheus, right? So the whole idea of the bearing the sin of the people and that kind of thing that the mystery picked up, that comes from the very earliest roots of the rites. And we only know that because it's in the literature. It's in the literature, and it's that idea that that head becomes the source of the song. It's a necessary purgation. The tyrant, Pentheus, the man of misery and pain, the tyrant must lose his head. That is what the Bacchic religion speaks that creates the purgation in Athens that brings democracy.
But does not Orpheus himself also be ripped apart by the Maenads, and then his head is sent down the ocean to Lesbos to become an oracle?
That's just not a fortunate day, that is it, really?
What's going on there?
Hit the next pic, though, before you unpack that. Oh, we know who that is from England. That's buried under the Tower of London there. That prophesizes as well.
Yeah, we can unpack this a bit. So this comes from the Mabinogion, and the tale of Branwen and Bran. This is Bran, who's a giant, and he's fighting a war to save Branwen, who was sent off to marry the king of Ireland, but then was abused when she was over there. And in the war, he dies, but her magic, cauldron, causes his body to continue on fighting. And at the end, she takes his head, which continues to prophesy, and she sticks it upon his shield. And after the war is done, she's the last person standing with the head. And she's said to have buried the head under a sacred mound. And this becomes the seat of empire. This is where London is founded, or at least, some kind of Welsh version. I'm not as familiar with it as someone like Old Boy, but we've unpacked this before. Maybe Ryan knows a bit, since this is his kind of area of the world.
No. To be honest, it's one of the few things I haven't researched. I lived in Wales for a while, but when I was there, it was very prehistoric where I was. So that was fascinating. Plus, I made most of my discoveries when I was there, which have nothing to do with British culture at all. So even though the stuff I found is in there.
The key stuff to think on here that connects to the Orpheus myth, which I think Dion's about to get to, is the charging shield, the talking head, the giant, the magic cauldron that restores people to life, and the creation of empire through burying of the head. All stuff you'll see in the Greek.
We even have that on the Etruscan side. Excuse me, Dion. We even have that on the Etruscan side, right? We have that giant cauldron into which Medea puts the parts that become life. That's amazing stuff, dude.
Wow.
Well, there it is. Here's Orpheus' head on a lyre, prophesizing. Unpack that.
To me, I often see shapes, and I see lots of mushroom stuff, but I see mushroom stuff everywhere, so don't pay any attention to me. I'm sure Ammon has something much more intelligent to say on the subject. You've got to think of the Aegis shield and the head of Medusa on there and things like that. But again, I'm taken to what's the guy's name? The mushroom god. What's his name? He kills Medusa. What's the guy's name?
Perseus.
Yeah, he's clearly a mushroom god. When he finds Mycenae, he picks a mushroom out of the ground after he just dropped his mushroom cap on the floor. And when you look at Mycenae, it's in the shape of a bull's leg, which we know is a mushroom allegory. So, it's all drugs to me. So, and I've just had a load of mushrooms, so I've not.
You're right. And Ryan, the name Mycenae itself in Greek means mushroom. It uses the mushroom root up front.
Mucus,
yeah. Definitely. And it was some, you know what it was? It was some friggin' local nymphs that led him to those mushrooms. Yeah. And he drank from them. Right. Yeah. Oh,
what
my
do you
God.
think is that? Because they say this a spring of water came out and it tasted good. Do you think that's the watery modality of the mushrooms? What's your thoughts on that? I would say, just from the fact that you have the kind of slimy stuff on the cap, were they referencing that? I don't know. I'm always going to stick with it literally, but the fact that they lead him to that mushroom as a source of the place where the city will be founded. It's like he's getting his vision for the city that he's going to call Mushroom Town from these nymphs. I want to know about the nymphs, right? What the hell, man? Is this a local tribe or something? Right? I love it. Look, what is better than this picture
What is better than this picture? That's life, man. Look at Orpheus. That's the best position in the world. Who would not die to be part of Salome's dance? Yeah. What prophet among you is that cowardly? Right? The prophet becomes the voice and he's decapitated. Oh, God. That's the most gorgeous.
I do want to unpack some of this, though, because we know through some of the Orphic fragments of Otto Kern, there are some less than savory accusations against our friend Orpheus. It's said that he gives up the love of women after Eurydice abandons him, and he takes up the Phoenician way, right? And then that's why they rip him apart. And the Phoenicians are lesties, are they not, Ammon?
Yeah, it was a group of Maenads, remember, that killed him. So you got to be looking at everything from the Bacchic angle. And yes, other people repeat that too. Ovid's one of them. He became a lover of boys. Why did he become a lover of boys? If you try to figure out, like, okay, anthropologically, what the hell's going on here? He's dropped his pursuit of love because his wife had to go back to hell. So he dropped it, turned away from the cult that got him there, and focused instead on boys. Now, it wasn't odd to focus on boys. Hercules was doing the same thing. That was his honey, right? So, and Medea was the only one allowed to go and be in it. So I think there was, I think this whole boy business was some kind of alteration in the cult that was not accepted, and a group of enforcers showed up and killed him, right? You don't know who you are, right? Gonna take off your head, right? Love it. Decapitation of prophets.
It does
Hebe
seem to
and Ganymede as
poetically...
well. There was a swap over there between Hebe and Ganymede. That's what put me onto you guys in the first place. Like, what cultural change happened, and could you pin it down from seeing when the stories changed? What do you think it was, Ammon? Do you think it's something chemical with a boy's body that's a bit better? Because I think if they're playing with bottoms, it wouldn't make much difference if it's a girl or a boy.
Yeah, that's one of the most interesting questions about the mystery. How do you get this shift that you see from the priestess, who's the guarded virgin, who produces the bodily communion with the dance and the song? How do you go from that to the boy who becomes the cup of the nectar, right? It's got to be similar. Their bodies, because they're both prepubertal, their bodies are probably involved in making similar things. Maybe the male doesn't have as much testosterone, right? But historically, what you're asking is historically, what happened? Is there some kind of shift? I think that's why you have such tension between Medea and Hercules, between those two manifestations of the cult. I think that's why you have so much attempt to separate the two, because Medea is coming from an Amazonian, a Scythian tradition, right? And in the Scythian tradition, you're not doing the same thing that Heracles is doing with his kid, right? These are women who are teaching each other in these ceremonies that involve sexual acts, right? And that is one tradition. On the other side, you have the male lover who is involved with the prepubertal boy, right? And that is it's like there's two different tracks that, what was the original? The original was those women on horseback, baby, those Pelasgian tribes, right? The stuff goes back to them. That's where it's coming from. It's part of human development. Yeah. So I don't know when it bifurcated, right? But it does, even so much so that by the time you get to Jesus Christ, when he's arrested with a naked kid in the public park, screaming, "I'm not one of these traffickers." By the time you get to there, at what point have you fully made the transition then? Is that why Jesus is in the park with a naked boy and not a naked girl? Yeah, It's hard to track. The history is hard, but the stuff is in the language. It's in there, preserved, baby. We'll get it.
You got it, mate. You already done it.
I think also with this Orpheus imagery here, we're seeing, like you mentioned, Pentheus. It's almost a direct parallel of the Pentheus story, and it's a similar reasons he's getting ripped apart too, right? You know, there's this thing about that trying to perceive the mystery as a masculine force, where the women won't allow you to perceive it unless you've been transformed. And the transformation seems to be essential, right? Also, Dionysus is ripped apart, right? He's ripped apart by the Titans. And then he's said to be prophesied to have it happen to him again, right? As Zagreus. So and then you have that whole thing about the ripping of the bodies and the consuming of the flesh. What is going on with this idea? And then Phanes is also ripped apart as the primordial sacrifice. So there's like this ripping apart and the severing of the head from the body especially is such a recurring theme, like the destruction of the body, but the protection of the head. It's almost like symbolic of apotheosis, of achieving ionic life. What do you think, Ammon?
I think the deeper I get into the cannibalism on the Bacchic side, the more I begin to see why the Greeks of, like the 5th century would look back and say, there were some dark times, right? Don't get us wrong. They would say things were glorious, but there were some dark times where we were sacrificing people and eating them, right? That root of Bacchic worship is undeniably grotesque, but it's a part of it, and it's always a central part of it. So that human sacrifice, all of these religions that are developing, remember Diana's religion that's developing around the Black Sea, somebody washes ashore, you sacrifice them. That's the way it is. The priestess, it's her, nobody else. Right? And she happens to have been sacrificed by her father, right? And we know those sacrifices are always devotions to the temples, right? So you've got this foreign girl from this royal family in this temple of the Black Sea, and her job is to have people sacrificed. She's the one who does it. So, my God, man, what are those drugs that they're finding in their hair offerings, right? Those are things that jack you up and make you psychotic, right? They weren't afraid of it. They'd fully engaged. But in the process of fully engaging, they created a system of oracles that promoted what eventually became democracy. That voice out of that rocked priestess became ultimately what you and I look at as tyrant killing democracy. Sic semper tyrannis, right? From Virginia State Seal, right? Here's one for Virginia. Is she the virgin? Maybe.
Beautiful. Dion, do you want to take us back on track here?
Can I add a little something there? Yes. So on the famous Pillar 42 at Göbekli Tepe, there's a shamanic character whose head's been removed and he's actually over where the North Pole is. So there's a motif there that we know that the North Pole is a place that is still, is as if it was the hub of a wheel and the cosmos, fate spins around it. So there's an analogy there. And not to mention that dismemberment, that disembodiment is absolutely a shamanic motif. I don't always like to use the word shamanic because it seems so primitive in people's heads, but what I mean is the proto magic, if you get me. Well, we know from ayahuasca trips and such, and datura and lots of other of these kind of more underworld drugs that you're pulled apart, examined,
dissociatives rather than just psychedelics. Yeah,
and the head remaining would be that your consciousness is still, symbolically speaking, is that the consciousness is still there. That, absolutely, in one of these ionic realms where everything else has gone, your ego's gone, time's gone, everything's gone. There's nothing there.
Wild to think about. What do you think, Dion?
Oh, hit the next pick and we'll unpack that. The Aegis. Is it a shield? Is it a cloth? Is it a Medusa's head attached to it? Or is it a snake head attached to an animal skin, to a goat skin? Hit the next pick. Now here we have a hairnet. What do they call it? A kekryphalos. Some people, it means a lighthouse. Some type of and you'll see at the top of this hairnet is an Aegis with like a little Medusa head on there.
Cool.
Now, people talk about the Aegis shield as something you hold and you put a head on it, asphyxiate a head onto it. Well, it could be something that's worn on the body as well. It could be a snake attached to a charger. I'm trying to drive home the symbology of what this is. A metallic plate or animal plate or shield or surface with the head asphyxiated to it. Or a snake's head asphyxiated to it. It's a powerful symbol. Hit the next pick. All right. Well, I was hoping we had an Aegis shield in there, but you all know what that is. But go back. It's all right. Because now we're going to move on. But I just wanted to drive those symbols home of the head being removed and having power and being used. Oh, go for it, Ammon.
Can I say one thing? Oh, God, you got to say about the Aegis. Yes, it can be worn. It is the skin of the great nurse. It is the skin of the nurse. Isn't that cool? And on
the
it,
one that fed Jupiter.
yes,
Fed Zeus. Yeah.
yes, the great one.
Mother, what's her name?
Althea's her name. Love it.
Keep going, and pack
You can't just dip in and out like that. Come on.
You are protected in the ion by the skin of your nurse. Yeah. And what is the thing that it contains? Remember, it clothes you and it looks outward. And what is the thing that it contains? It contains that thing that freezes your enemy, turns them to stone. For those who have ears to hear, watch what the priestesses are doing. If that isn't the sexiest stuff on the planet, nothing is.
Right.
Well, let's get into hair. Because this first section was about hair. Before we get into ears to hear, I had to get into cutting off hair, Samson's hair, Bernice's hair, Rapunzel's hair, cutting off the heads of John, Orpheus. Here we have King Nisos. I know I'm probably not saying it right, obviously, but you might have heard of this famous king. Had a daughter, and his daughter fell in love with King Minos. Got a crush on him, and figured, well, how can I impress this king? She goes home and she cuts off a piece of Daddy's hair. Now, Daddy's is famous for having a hair of purple, a purple lock of hair, mind you. We talk about the burning purple. Well, this king had a lock of purple hair that protected him and the whole city, all the states, and that's where his magic power resided, was in this purple lock, until one day she came and cut it. You know, this story is an archetype for the removing of the power, removing of the hair. You know, I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Ammon.
Yeah, it's through his ionic power was he able to lead the people and keep them safe. And his avenue for doing that was that purple, right? Removing that purple is what you do in death. All right, fantastic. Yeah, it's an offering. It's an offering. She made an offering of her father. Yeah, right? Oh God. If you're in it, if you've been initiated, this is all going to make a lot more sense because you've taken the trip. And I'm not talking about random, people shooting themselves up with things to have random visions. I mean, if you saw the Korah, you would understand. You would understand. It's a gorgeous, oh God, those people, what a beautiful world to live in. The Bronze Age, baby. What a beautiful world. That lion too that we've been talking about, Circe poisons those lions, turns them into servants. How she do that? She opens their minds. With drugs? Yep, with drugs. That's why we call her polypharmacon, right? Not only one who uses lots of drugs, but one who's very good with them. Because you don't just use drugs in antiquity to get high. You use drugs in antiquity to purge people. You use drugs in antiquity to heal people. Right? To heal people. I can come to your home, and because I'm a witch, I can fumigate. I can get rid of your demons. You want to go to sleep at night? I'll make it happen for you. Yeah, and how do I do that? Because I'm polypharmacon, baby. That's how. Imagine the age when that tech was so strong. And you mentioned Helios, right? Talos is the other way of saying Helios. If you don't believe me, look it up. Right? That Talic project is the magic. Why did he cover his face? Why did she cover her face? Why are they using the purple? Right? It's the gateway. Right? People say, oh, it's a gateway drug. Is it? No, you haven't seen gateway drug, right? Until you've seen somebody transformed who has a sudden awareness, and that awareness isn't a random, holy shit, I saw him flying saucer. Shut up, George, you were hallucinating, right? Not like that. Those who have walked with that DK, with that virgin. Well, when it comes down to it, people are looking at the assassination attempt, right? And they're looking at it through the eyes of the act itself, thinking, oh, it was meant to kill, right? It was meant to kill, right? But it didn't. And then the evangelicals will chime in, and they will read that vibe, and they will say, blessed Jesus, thank you so much for, it's miraculous. Oh, right? It's miraculous. Oh, but what they don't see is the conduction of the Saturnian power. Now the tyrant is born to the next level because he has come to a place where he has fought off death, right? And his people will use that in his myth to build him up. Oh God, I know you were going to say something about it. It's gorgeous history, people. It's just history happening right in front of you.
This is true. Well, that's why we had to show a little about the clipping of the hair, the clipping of the head, before we're getting to the clipping of the ear, and how this could be used to turn somebody into a emperor. Let's hit the next pick. Oh, there you go. That's just the last image of her clipping Dad's purple hair to take away his power. So go to the next pick. Ears to hair. This is the old Egyptian stele. That deals with ears. They would put ears on columns and hieroglyphs as a way to appeal to the gods, to pray to the gods. You would put some ears next to your favorite god so that he would hear your prayers and answer and respond. Ears are also powerful in another way. Go to the next pick. Van Gogh. You ever heard of Vincent van Gogh? Famous painter. Cut off his ear. Or was it Paul Gauguin that cut off his ear? It's funny. Here in the picture, it's his right ear. It really was his left ear. But he's in a mirror, and he did a self-portrait. But this is already showing you part of the symbology of the ear. The losing of the ear and what that can mean in building mythologies and symbologies. Go to the next pick. Boom. That, you know what that is? That's his great-great-great-great-grandson's ear that's grown from his DNA. Vincent van Gogh's great-great-great-grandson went to a DNA doctor. They took some extract and they grew an ear out of his
That's
and it's in a
just
museum.
Insulting. I'd be pissed off if I were Van Gogh. I'd be like,
No, we're talking about
No,
ears
we
to hear
can't.
today. We're talking about ears, the power of the ear. It's eternal. No, we have power
There
here.
you
Go to
go.
the next pick. All right, here we go. J. Paul Getty III. He was kidnapped by the what was it? The Calabrian mafia, Anadrati, Italian mafia. And they demanded some money, and they sent a lock of his hair in his ear. They sent a lock of his hair in his ear, and so until finally somebody had to take some money, the ransom money to him. You know who that was? That was Newsome's father, Gavin Newsome's father, because he was the one of the trustees of the J. Paul Getty fortune, going back to the day, and it's part of the Brown family, the Newsome family, and their connection to politics and the Pope. I'm just throwing this out there because we're dealing with making presidents and emperors out of ears. For those that have ears to hear, go to the next pick. Yeah, there's Newsome right there. Like I said, his father delivered the ransom when they sent the ear for J. Paul Getty because his father was in charge of the J. Paul Getty Trust, administering the money. Here he is with Trump Jr.'s current wife, when he used to be his wife, wearing his nice purple shirt with their nice wine. We're talking about emperors. And the story, where does the story go left and right? What's really what you think it is? Go to the next pick. Because he was tapped by the Pope, Newsome. He's coming soon. Maybe this time, maybe next time. Just letting you know. And the story starts off with the ear. So let's go to the next pick. All right. July 13th, 1917, Fatima prophecies. The third apparition. A lot of popes talk about this. This is what the popes that scared them. Pope Pius. And they passed this prophecy down to all the other popes. It deals with emperors and the future of the world in Russia. The Fatima prophecy that happened on July 13th deals with emperor makers. It's already been talking today. As we speak now, there's somebody in a church somewhere talking about July 13th and the Fatima prophecy and how that relates to Trump. Now let's go to the next pick. Right there. Got his ear taken off right there. The symbology of the ear is even deeper if we get into biblical prophecy. First, we'll start with the New Testament version of it. Go to the next pick. All right. Here we go. Malchus in the Bible. So we got that night, 4 a.m. He's alone in the garden. But he has his homies with him. Where are they at? He told him, hey, keep watch. I need you to keep watch over it. Don't fall asleep because things will go bad. We don't want to fall into temptation. Do not fall asleep. Because he's over there hanging out with somebody that used to follow him, that says, the young boy. At a certain point, his buddy comes up and gives him a kiss on the cheek. And that leads to a series of events where Simon Peter pulls out a sword and cuts off a Roman centurion's, or what's not even a centurion, let's say, it's an official, cuts off his ear. Now, Jesus gets mad, tells him, no, don't do that. Put your sword away because I got to drink this cup. And he heals his ear. You can see the picture right there of him healing his ear. And the word Malchus, what does it mean? Go to the next picture.
Judge.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
It means the king of Malchus. The dude who got his ear wounded and healed by Jesus. Jesus' last miracle before he was crucified was Malchus, the king. Yeah, I could see how somebody could use this for some kind of mythology right here, huh? Just saying, it's coming soon. This is the New Testament version right here. But we still got our Old Testament version. Go to the next pick. So even before we go then, let's talk about this. Mark 7. So Jesus took him aside privately, away from the crowd, and he put his fingers into the man's ears, and then he spit and touched the man's tongue.
Dude, what is he doing?
Yeah, this ain't the first time he's messing about with people's ears and spitting in people's mouths.
Can I put some sexy music on?
Yeah.
Put some like raunchy music on.
No, there's already something going on with these ears. There's a lot
going on with this. There's what is this in the Orphic Vox? There's got to be some kind of drug reason for this.
It's the money shot.
Everybody knows that the magus has juices in his body, and those juices have medicinal, spiritual powers. So for Jesus Christ to spit in your mouth, how many people would, all of you Catholics out there, all of you evangelicals, wouldn't you love for Jesus Christ to spit in your mouth? And also, no, right? Come on.
No, he had to do
Jesus,
it. He had to put his finger in his ear. He liked touching on the ears to hear. But somebody who had their ear wound and was healed, that's a king at that last miracle. But there's more to this story. So that's the New Testament. We're going to unpack it through an Old Testament lens. Go to the next pick. Here we go. We'll start off with this. Now, and some people even posit there was a reason that Simon Peter cut his right ear off, was because it would remove evidence of his relationship or contract with Caiaphas, the high priest, because there is a relationship between servants and high priests depending on your ears. Now, let's really get into ears. So if y'all are going to say that Trump is Malchus, last miracle, the emperor king revived by Jesus, well, let's unpack it through the Old Testament, through the Torah, through a different way. So in this one, it says, then his master shall bring him to God. Then he shall bring him to the door or doorpost, and his master shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him permanently. Now, this is in Exodus and also in Deuteronomy, which we're going to look at. And it deals with a servant. When your servant's time is up or your servant wants to leave, if he wants to stick around and you guys are cool, all you got to do is put him up against the door and you stick something through his ear. Now, the word is apition. Some people say it's a shoemaker's awl, but let's go to the next pick. Oh, there's an example of it right there. So in one version, you get your ear messed up, you become Malchus, you become a king. But remember, Malchus was a servant of Caiaphas. So if you get your ear messed up, what that really means is you're a servant to somebody. That's what that really means. We're going to unpack this today. So go to the next picture. Deuteronomy 15. Then you shall take an awl and thrust it through his ear to the door, and he shall be your servant forever. But in the Greek, it says aeon, aeonic. It's the aeon, but in perpetuity. Why has he got to be your slave forever? What's up with that? So from a Goyim perspective, Trump getting his ear blown off, and that's a contract to serve somebody in perpetuity, a certain somebody, let's say. So if we're going to unpack it, New Testament, he's Malchus. In the Old Testament, this is called a bonded servant it's called ear contracts or ear bonding. It goes back to the code of Hammurabi. And if you look at Hammurabi, when it comes to servants and problems, it always comes down to an ear. An ear deals with ownership by a certain group over somebody else. Let's hit the next pick. Yeah, and so the word the apition, people say shoemaker's awl. Well, it could have been a bone or a horn. A horn, the tip of a horn. That's what you would pierce his ear, put him up against the door and stick a horn through his ear. And then later on, to test the contract, the slave would have to stand next to the doorpost. And if the hole in his ear matched up with the doorpost, then that contract was valid for him to be yours in perpetuity.
These are some bad lace dye, man. Seriously, you know what I mean? They got the earring there, they got the awl bored through the ear, right? And they're representing that power of the iron. Yeah, definitely. Remember, these are the same guys. The same guy who's lost his ear and magically got it back. That same guy was part of the group that auctions off Mary when she's 12. She's pregnant and 12. That's the same group. Remember, her fingers are purple stained because she's been eating angels in the temple. This is the same group. So if you want to consider that thing a pirate, a clue to a pirate, I don't think you'll be far off. And that's why the Roman government, they didn't send out two dudes in a squad car to a squad chariot to arrest Jesus. They sent out a unit of the military like you would to these traffickers. These guys are, you know, the temple is itself the dealer, right? And all we're doing as Romans is we're supporting the current biggest mafia, right? That's all we're doing. We've done that for years. Shut up. Just don't insurrect or you're dead, right? That's the message of the empire, right? Oh God.
So wild. That was insane, Dion. Just crazy. The bonded servant thing. That does make me think of a lot of the Saturnian magic that we see too, with these bindings, binding someone in chains, right? And you had talked about this on the previous stream we did, Ammon, with Dionysus, where this whole idea of binding yourself to God was anathema to the cult of Dionysus, because they were, you know, and to the Great Mother, because the Great Mother, you're shaving your head and you're freeing yourself, right?
Losing your head is very freeing. And Dion nailed it on the, just right on it. Going, look what you did, Dion. You went back to the language and you said, what does this actually mean? And you dug down one layer like like a literary archaeologist. You dug down one layer and you found that reality at the rock bottom. Gorgeous. Goddamn gorgeous. I love it. Oh, that's what I have to say. Nice job, Dion.
Thank you. Thank you. I just know that these narratives are out there, and somebody's going to become an emperor pretty soon, a martyr, a living martyr. And the mythologies behind it are
martyr.
Oh, I'm pretty sure he's going to win. I'm pretty sure he's going to win. Before, I was pretty sure whatever, but now, with this, he's immortal. You cannot tell me he's not immortal after this.
He's going to take power even if he doesn't win, right? That's what anybody who studied historia, right? That inquiry into what is humanity. Anybody who studied that can tell you that's what tyrants do, baby. This has made him immortal, right? The only thing that he has to fear is the return of decay, the return of justice, the return of liberty. If he does, and that's going to put him, it's funny because it's self-perpetuating, right? It's going to put him in a mode where not only does he think he's invincible, did you see him holding up the fist? Right? He assumed that power in that moment. He assumed that power. Right, that was divine, and the Christians, the monists will recognize the divine aura that was there. He assumed that power. So it's gonna snowball from here, right? Because now that's what's in his eyes, right? He is Talos, and that's what's in his eyes. That's what burns in him. So, oh God, it's lovely seeing a God born, isn't it?
But remember, that God is he's under a contract, because that by ear, it's a contract. The way it happened is a contract, a mystery right contract.
I mean, if that's an inauguration into what's going to be coming, then I think the novelty of everything that happens from now on is going to ramp up. If you think that was something unusual, just watch what happens in the future. We're dealing with extremes. I said this before the podcast started, you know. Society, as it's polarized, we're now dealing with extremes. As the pendulum swung one way, it'll swing the other, and then it'll get more rapid. The frequency will grow, and we'll see things get more to the extremes, unless you get some character that can bind the whole thing together. But I don't think that's coming anytime soon. It's got to get bad before the pendulum wants to swing in that other direction. It's almost like the pendulum swinging not X to Y, but now it's got to go into the Z axis. We've got to change dimension entirely. In fact, let's go dimension on drugs. Ooh, let's all take drugs and be nice.
Within the mythopoetic framework, I want to point out two possibilities that I see that are well represented within the Greek. And that is, one possibility is Athena, Okay, the rebirth of Athena, which is that goddess that comes out, where that patriarch is destroyed through the power of reason and is reborn as the intersex bi-gendered goddess who wields the scepter and carries the shield, right? Masculine and feminine embodied in one form. And how does she solve the problem? She takes the hit. She takes the violence of the Furies and calms them, turns them into Eumenides. She invites them to sit in Galaxia in the Temple of the Muses, right? So we have that image. But then there's the other version of this story, which is Reset, where you enter back to that Bacchic beginning. You return back to that golden age, where this ushers in a complete reset. And we enter into a dark age. And how do we escape a dark age? We have to hold on to our foundation, our temple of our muses. And we just have to hold out until this age of Dionysus is over. It's said to last a certain amount of time. You have so much time where the sun is in the underworld, where that revelry needs to go crazy. Everything needs to be reset. And then eventually Apollo can return to help us rebuild. But the key to surviving the Dionysian is that foundation.
Yeah, very well put. I'm going to take the first option, please. I mean, I like Dionysus and all, but another Dark Age sounds a bit rubbish. It's bad enough now.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you, right? No one wants to go to the Dark Age, but those Dark Ages, they cause what you explosions of intellect and rebirth, right? This is the same fight. You can see this in modern science fiction between Frank Herbert and Asimov. Asimov wants to bring Galaxia. At the end of his story, humanity evolves into the mother goddess. We all unite. We embrace the foundation, the museum. In Herbert's story, no, the tyrant imprisons us for 1,000 years until we kill him. And this causes us to explode out into the stars in infinite diversity.
I think the real question here is between Herbert and Asimov, who would win in a real fight? Like man to man.
Oh, almost certainly Herbert. Herbert was in the military and stuff, as far as I know. And Asimov was a book nerd. Glasses.
Yeah, glasses. Yeah. Pull his jacket down and slap him.
Can you see Herbert?
Come on, you English tough. Say that again, Ammon.
Can you see Herbert kicking his ass? Come here, Asimov. Your work sucks, baby. Right? Oh, God. What about, are those the only two options? What about this option? The election doesn't matter. If he wins, he takes over and destroys American democracy. If he doesn't win, he takes over and he destroys American democracy. The election is a ruse. It's only useful if people respect it. You have half of this country that does not respect election results. Guess what that means? You don't even have people that can agree to be democratic, right? This is a purgation. Seeing the tyrant is a purgation. The more he comes out, the more he comes to the fore, the more people can fear his power, the better chance we have of Athena stepping forward, saying no, of Maenads coming out of the mountains and saying, you know what the oracle said to do? She said to pull your head off, right? That's the type. If we don't have that, we're never going back, because this always works, by the way. Overtaking the government always works if you have at least 30% support from the population. He's got way more than 30% now. He is a god. He is a god, and we are doomed to his power. We are doomed to his power. Isn't that beautiful, though? I mean, isn't that part of some kind of cosmic, when a star explodes, that light leaves and you're left with a blackness that sucks everything into it, right?
I think you guys are very hyperbolic. As an antidote to that, as a bit of an antidote to that, he's already been in power for 4 years. None of these things happened before. comment.
Right, right. Because tyrants aren't born. Tyrants are made. He didn't have the power that he's got now. He not only has earthly power over justice, he also has power over fate. He is anointed. This dude is the classical tyrant. That's why you can say, well, 4 years ago he didn't do bad. Yeah, I'm sure Hitler as a teenager was probably a pretty good guy. I don't know, but when he was brought to that position of the tyrant, look what he did. Look what he did, and you can look for the violence now to become part of the regularity. You can look for that, because it's bubbling that now it's the power of the tyrant has been released, and the tyrant feeds, suckles those little children, right? And gives them that same fear and that same power. You can look for that manifesting itself as violence in the society. And you're going to say, oh, well, you guys are violent enough already. We are. But remember, it's a slope. It's a slope, people. Right? The black hole is there. The dark star, they used to call it. The Nazis messed that one up. They didn't do their homework. That dark star is ultimately the most beautiful form of nature. It is when the light leaves and everything else merges. God, total paradise there.
Right. That's beautiful. And that was beautiful, that ending. I just also want to point out, though, right? Like, Trump is a manifestation of fear. Okay. He is playing into Christian nationalism. And what is this fundamentally about? Resisting change, resisting the moment, fighting against your neighbor, going back to outdated myths. MAGA is about a false mythology that never existed, a fake imagined past, some kind of Christian glory nation that never was real. This is literally about trying to exist in a fairy tale. And anytime humanity goes into these kind of systems, the same thing happens. We invest power into individuals. We then start to consume our children. We attack what's different. We persecute the minorities. And when you do that, as Ammon said, you invoke nemesis upon yourself. We've seen it time and time again. These cities then fall. People lash out. This becomes a self-defeating purpose. These kind of tyrants, what ends up happening is they stop believing in reality. They become invested entirely in dreams, right? One of the things with Hitler, and he says this in his letters, right? He says, I cannot believe in a world without the German state. And to kill myself, to commit suicide, is the triumph of the will over reality, right? They've abandoned all reason if you go down this path. And like Ammon said, it's a slope, right? This is something that is happening. Trump has been transformed into the tyrant. He's no longer a man. He is an egregore. He is a manifestation, an eidolon, right? It's wild.
He has worshipers, right?
As polarization to all this, though, as somebody that is sitting outside, from a slightly different culture and a different country, but looking at the meta of all this, I see what you guys are saying, and the way I'm drinking in what you guys are saying is the more left-leaning side, or the anti-Trump side, whatever you want to place that as this polarity again. These extremes you guys are feeling are symptomatic of this polarity, and that even though you lot seem very sure of what's going to happen, I think we've got to wait to see what actually happens. All this is rhetorical, and we've got to be careful still. Please, I invite you back to the center somewhat to see the balance of that justice. You know what I mean? Let's see everything here, and not jump to conclusions.
I just have to bring in some personal reality. You know, I watched as far-right extremists descended on my city in Ottawa and occupied it for over a month. I was spat upon and assaulted, and the cops did nothing. This is my physical, real world. I take these people seriously when they tell me that they do not think queer people should exist, that they want a king, and that they want a Christian nation, and that they don't believe women should have rights to their own bodies. This stuff.
I'm not denying
weird.
they exist, Snappy. I'm just saying that everyone's polarized, and you guys are like, the things that you guys are saying are quite extreme things, really. I'm pointing out that this is all very polarized now, and we've even got to be careful in the way we're talking. We've got to. It's coming for me. This polarity is coming for me soon. I see it happening over here too. It's just that, you know, America leads the way, fortunately, on most things here, unfortunately.
Greek free speech is not what you're free to say, what you have a right to say. It's what you must say when it comes down to justice or tyranny. That's how they viewed it. It's what you must say under the right circumstances. And it is right now for me to reach back in the past into Virginia and to pull out Sic Semper Tyrannis, right? Because this sentiment was what drove my ancestors, right? We're here for freedom. There isn't blue and red. There isn't blue and red right now. There's not Biden. There's not Trump. There is freedom and there is tyranny. And people are marching forward to it here. People are marching forward to tyranny, just like the Germans did. And the funny thing is, that stuff is all traceable. You can just look at the history and watch people do that through time. We should know by now, having done this so many times, we should know, oh shit, did you hear somebody say that things were better off in 1400? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Oh my God, somebody say something. Yeah, they're going to come in. And the thing is that violent power will throw it. It's already done it, right? The Georgians are so pissed off because that tyrannical power came in and started killing people because they were homosexual. It doesn't matter what you put for homosexual, trans, this colored skin. It doesn't matter what you put in that little box, as long as you see that people are being murdered by tyranny, right? That's what we have to keep in mind. People wondered, how is it that the Germans just went along? Nazis were not the majority. They could have stood up against them. They could have, right? But why didn't they? I don't know. Did something in the power resonate with them? Or did they just keep their mouths shut and watch? I had the distinct pleasure of having a TA in high school who was German, and she had been through the war. And I said, what did you see in Hitler? And she said, I don't know. We went to his rallies, and he made us feel so good. Right? Wait a minute. You didn't think? Well, we didn't think, we didn't stand up, we didn't do anything. And that's what happens. When you refuse to support Athena, that's what happens. It's not Joe Biden or Trump. This is a struggle for freedom and tyranny, right? Pick which side you're on, people. Are you going to be the murderous horde for tyranny? Or are you going to be the people who are saying, look, we can't be bombing hospitals. We can't be killing children, right? We can't be doing this kind of thing. We can't be bursting into people's houses at night in SWAT teams and take people out, kick them out of the country. We can't do that. You can't do that. Do you know what that is? That's a fascist state. And I know people are out there, they write to me all the time, you don't know what fascism is. Hey, you know what? I do. My ancestors fought against you. My ancestors fought against that power. And I have the duty to speak up now and to tell you that, right? So did Canada, so did Britain, right? Oh, God, love it. It's such a, you know, you can tell right where you are in history. You can predict the future of what will happen to Trump. You can predict that.
So we'll come and have this conversation again in 4 years' time, if we can.
Oh yeah. And so with that, I want to tell everyone at home that we love you regardless of whether you're light, light or black, dark, white, red, whatever color, whatever political affiliation, left, right, blue, red, Republican, Democrat, and then
but not the Green Party.
Yeah, the Green Party. And what about
no
libertarians?
Annoying.
Here we got libertarians. We got the Kennedys running for office. We got a whole another thing we didn't even talk about. Left, right. What about the Libertarian and Kennedy? And so that's even wild too when you throw that in there too. So I'll admit one thing. I haven't voted. I don't remember the last time I ever voted. And here I am talking shit about politics. I'll be real. Why not?
Mm.
Some people will say I don't have a voice in this if I don't vote.
I'll admit I only voted last time. So it's
I'm
like,
actually,
yeah, I'm a crazy hippie. So what do you want?
I'm with Ammon. I see that the whole thing's rigged, and most of the time there's no point doing it. If they wouldn't let you do it if it had any difference anywhere, you know, especially in the States, that is pretty rigged as well. But you know, over here you do see the system's rigged. It's like walking into a shop and saying you can have this chocolate bar or that chocolate bar. Here you go, and I'm like, well, there's all these different all these different confectionaries behind you. And there's gumballs, and there's all these. I want that over there. No, chocolate bars. 2 chocolate bars. You can have a Hershey or a Mars bar. I want the sherbet. I want an orange sherbet.
Orange.
I think the Greeks were right. And I think you could solve the whole election question about whether it's fair or not. You could solve that in an instant with what they did. Pick him by randomly, by lot. Just do it by lot, and let fate decide who your leaders are, and then hold your leaders responsible as citizens to the law. Once you do that, you're set. You're set. You got a democracy. I don't know why we don't. You know, we could flip that vote in a second and say, look. We're gonna have a computer pick it out, right? Or we're gonna go to a big ceremony and throw rocks in there. We're gonna do something. We're gonna have some grand social security number database, and it's gonna pick you out. And when it picks you, you got to be president. Sorry, right? Oh, and we're only gonna do up to so old, right? We learned that lesson, right?
I think it's also really important that we recognize, number one, that this is a battle of ideas. We can yell and scream about ideas, but we're not about trying to hate individuals. We need to come together as a community and learn to compromise. That's the central thing of democracy, is compromising and working together to solve the actual problem. One of the central issues here with any of these kind of tyrannical governors, these politicians, are when they say, I know the right answer. Let's do it my way. Then it's no longer a compromise. It's no longer a discussion. You're no longer engaged in politics with us, right? We have to return to these fundamental roots of things. We can disagree and have conversations on ideas. We can fight in this realm, but it's got to eventually come down to a compromise that's fixated on how do we solve the situation. I think too much of us, we've now, on either side, people start viewing their neighbors as no longer their neighbors and view them as the problem. We need to kick people out. We need to stop paying for people. We need to stop allowing so-and-so to say this or do that, right? It's like we need to really focus instead upon how do we figure out where the pain is, where the problem is. And I think, like Ammon, you've mentioned this on your channel, the big problem is we have greedy operatives who want to keep everyone fighting so that they can skim off the top, right? Like Trump is being anointed. He's being anointed. He's being put in power. And what is he fundamentally going to do? He's going to make sure those people who made that earring get flipping paid. That's it.
It's sad. Dion, what were you did you have any more slides?
Oh no. I just wanted to show that Trump's ear could be a blessing or a curse. If you unpack it, New Testament or Old Testament, is it really him being promoted to emperor or king, or is he really being promoted to bondservant? And so it's how you symbolically unpack it. But either way, I think people, it's given them a pass. They love them after this, you know. Any president that would get shot and survive it, you would think he would be impervious. He would have that magic power. So it is what it is.
That moment when he stood up, no matter what you think of him, when he stood up and was defiant, that was pretty badass. That
because look, I went on Twitter and all the different places, or X, how you call it, and Reddit and the whole thing, and there's conspiracies on each side, and each side points to the deep state, and they'll say that like, no, he had someone shoot him on purpose, or was a blank, so that he could, you know, be promoted to a martyr. And then other people are, no, Joe Biden tried to have him killed, part of the deep state, and you know. But the irony is, the person that shot him was a Republican.
That is weird. Do we know why he shot him?
Well, he was into
the other weird thing
Republican
about this
stuff.
character is that he was almost completely not active on social media. As far as we can tell, he had an active presence on YouTube and may have been like slightly involved in Discord gaming. And when all he subscribed to on YouTube were pro-gun enthusiast channels, which were politically neutral. So he was a registered Republican. This was from several years ago, but he never changed that registry.
He could change his mind now.
Yeah,
we'll find out, won't we? We'll find out. Us not talking about it is not going to solve anything.
Yeah.
I hope that everything.
And I'm being told by the audience he was in a music video as well.
What, like
the people around him were saying that he was anti-Republican. And like, as Ammon has pointed out, right? Like, we have to understand there is a older Republican ideology prior to Trump that very much, if they are the constitutionalists they claim to, would be okay with this. I can imagine someone trying to, you know, that kind of action is extreme, and I'm never condoning it, but I can see the kind of Republican that would commit that action to save country, right?
Right. Okay.
Totally. Not only that, I can see that group of, you know, you call them Republicans, but whatever, they were registered Republicans. It's people who sense the danger, right? And they sense the train is going off the track. Those people, right? Those people are born when the black hole of the tyrant erupts, when the star goes supernova. That's the product. The heat is so intense, it makes these people, it forges people who stand for liberation, right? Liberation. And I'm saying just historically, I'm not saying, is this good or bad? Is it blue or red? No, I'm saying, look at what's happening historically. We could predict the future sitting here. From, you know, what do people think is going to happen now? What's the tyrant going to become in the future? Is there people are saying, oh, it's probably the Secret Service, right? Because they let down, right? I went to a rally once, not a rally. I went to it was a political rally because it was the former vice president speaking. And I observed the control that people had. The Secret Service has great control, right? So people will say, oh, this is the beginning of the conspiracies that have to do with the Secret Service, right? Why? I don't know. Maybe it's because he's saying he's going to disband the Justice Department, the CIA, and the FBI. Maybe it's because he's talking about those kind of tracks, that these conspiracies get a foothold. But the problem is none of that shit matters. It matters who he is, who Donald Trump is. Because that power goes downward. That tyrant who's at the top of the pyramid pushes that power downward to his base. And they're the ones that will absorb let's go round up some group, homosexuals, let's just say, and, we'll kill them. Right, I saw somebody arrested for drunken driving, which I'd love to watch those videos, but I don't know why. I think I secretly want to be a policeman. But the level that people are at, this woman started cursing this cop out, right? Just aggressive and, oh, the good old days when we didn't have to deal with immigrants. You're doing this because I'm white. You know, that kind of propaganda, right? Because that's what it is. It's propaganda within a movement. You know, if Russia couldn't beat us on the battlefield, they could beat us at home. You know, there's something to be said for the dangers of propaganda, and the groups that are chasing around homosexual people. Just notice what they're doing. They're going to get worse. They're going to get worse. Tell me, Ryan, have you seen this kind of stuff emerging? Have you seen this kind of fascist, Nazi, kind of anti-gay agenda emerging in Europe?
No. There's definitely a kind of an immigration crisis going on, but that is, you know, palpable. There's clearly a few too many people, and we need to slow it down a bit. But no press gangs going. Well, the problem is in Britain, and the reason why everyone's coming here is because we're spineless and we're soft touch, and we're very liberal, like very liberal. The left and the right are liberal over here, and it's just the way it is. Everyone's really nice most of the time. Oh, you get your bad people, but there certainly aren't press gangs forcing gays to a shallow grave or anything like that. No, quite the opposite.
How about in Germany? Because I heard in Germany that they're having a resurgence of Nazism. Is that true, or is that just our media bombarding us?
I'm sure it is true. I haven't heard it myself, but people are turning back to the church as well. It's this pendulum thing. As it swung one way, it's swinging the other. And as people are starting to fear, they turn into the church. They just turn into the conservative traditions. It's the nature of conservative people to go back to the past. So that's where they're going. So the Germans are going back to their past, I'm sure.
We do have a very strong anti-gay propaganda movement that is being pushed by Russia. And they are employing thousands and thousands of bots online. And they are paying people to make content. This is widely documented. And as Ammon, you were pointing out, there has been a well-documented propaganda campaign from Russia in America since day one. Mandy and I have talked about this at length, right? And part of that was to push the more extremes of capitalism and to push division, divide and conquer. These are normal. How do you destroy a country? It's always divide and conquer. How do you rule? Like I always think about when I was back in India and I was first learning about colonialism. And I'm just like, how do tens of thousands of British soldiers control millions, countless millions of Indians?
With class, darling, with class.
Well, when you look into the thing, they created two legal codes. One for Indians, one for Hindus, one for Muslims. They went into Muslim areas and made the police Hindu, went into Hindu areas, made the police Muslim. They exacerbated tensions like you wouldn't believe, all purposely done. And trains, moving people around via train. That's how you do it. You divide and conquer, you exacerbate religious tensions. You keep people fighting amongst themselves, right? You stoke those flames. And this is what we're seeing, right?
Yes.
How do you extremify America? What does Russia truly want? They want America to become a Christian fascio nation. So how do you do it?
I just think they want you squabbling between yourselves. I think it's to China's and Russia's advantage. Every disagreement between church and atheist, left and right, statist and anarchist, it's just more squabbling and more, you know, there used to be, you know, it was America. Come on, you know, you're still Americans. Do you know what I mean? And there was always that. But as Ammon said, obviously these liberal values, libertarian values are dissolving. I think a lot of the problems with the way we're speaking as well is liberal and libertarian mean slightly different things where I live to where you live. But we all get each other.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think too, like, you know, there's just, I don't know. It's a wild
cheer up, Snappy. You will wake up tomorrow morning. We'll grab a cup of tea. We'll go out and listen to the birds singing.
It's this. Well, what it is we're seeing a shift because it's also the unipolar world is shifting. It's not just Russia either. It's also China, right? Where's the fentanyl crisis coming from in the West, right? And it's so blatant, you'll see Chinese officials who will say, well, you guys did the opium crisis to us. You know, it's become such tit for tat. You know, what we're seeing is that there's a huge portion of the world that has decided that America should no longer be the world police, and that this is going to shift. And it's just causing a lot of intensity. And I'm not saying that America should be the world police. I'm just saying this is what's happening. It's not going to stay the way it is. Big change on the horizon.
A good, united, strong America is good for everybody. It is. It has been. I know you've got your bad side. Sorry, not you, Snappy, of the Commonwealth. but and I used to live in New York. You know, I was an American for a while. Not on my passport, but you know, I lived that life. And you know, a good strong America and a good united America, and one where you're all talking to each other and not hating each other for your political values and just a bit of respect. That's the world we all need. Because I don't want to live in a world where China's at the top or Russia. Maybe Canada, but then you'd keep apologizing for being on top there.
We can't.
But like, you know what? The West. I do think the Western values are a bit better than what goes on in China and Russia, and we should preserve that. And like Ammon does, and you, Snappy, particularly, reach back to our beginning and grab a hold of that Greek stuff and older. You know, it might be Greek, but it comes from a lot further back. Or you can see it develop as with the democracy and things like that. I say, let's all get a tent full of drugs, do the drugs, get drunk, go get in a big arena, talk each other out, shoot the shit, wake up with a hangover and see if we all still agree.
Right. I agree largely. You know, I'm a Canadian. My whole existence has benefited from being in between the US and England. You know, we are in some ways the largest state in the union. It's just a reality. But and I think we need to have a very honest appreciation and an honest discussion of any nation. And the US is multifaceted, many colored, but at its roots, at its core is democracy. You know, we can talk about the character of the founding fathers and how they failed to live up to those ideals, but those ideals are ideals. And I'm sorry, like you pointed out, democracy, in my opinion, it's the best. It combines cooperation and individualism. You know, it resists tyranny. We've seen what happens on the other sides, right? We've seen, do you want to be ruled by a state or ruled by a king otherwise, right?
You just don't love Jesus.
I love Jesus like a little boy. Oh, Jesus. Jesus is coming.
That deserves a like and a subscribe and a comment and a share. We appreciate everyone's time, you know, for letting us rant about politics. But you got to know politics. This is metaphysics. This is the occult. This is the mystery right here. What else is it? If it gets you triggered, then it must be the occult.
Hail Satan to that.
Indeed, beautifully said, Dion. That's perfectly said. And Jesus is coming back, right? Jesus is coming back to a school and to a battlefield near you. Love
it. 2 hours a day. It's social studies, Project 2025, and Dennis Prager. They're doing the flagship program out of Oklahoma. Walters has set it up. Superintendent of education, so that now these people could go in and rewrite history. They can say, you know, what the Civil War was about, what Thomas Jefferson was about, what anything was about. And they're teaching the Bible as history.
Well, hopefully, Dion, what will happen is, as Ammon was kind of hoping, I think, with Trump, if his vision turns out to be true, is that it'll get so bad that people will naturally be revolted by it and turn away from it. I mean, I was raised a Catholic. I'm certainly not a Catholic. You know, I saw the the hypocrisy in the way people behaved and what it was. You know, I was going to church and hearing Adam and Eve and then going home and watching David Attenborough. I'm like, these two things aren't going very well together. I'm listening to Dave. And so I was right.
Big thing for me is as a kid, I got roped into Christianity because they rewarded me and I enjoyed the attention. I read the Bible and recited it and got rewarded for it. But then I quickly got caught up in this holier than thou BS, denying the self, closing oneself off, getting caught up into those ideologies, trying to be that idealized Jesus figure. And what you realize when you go to the end of these ideologies is that you're stuck up against the black wall and you can't even experience life. You've just denied yourself all experience entirely, and you're in the state of perpetual guilt. You know, that was the end. That's where I found myself. And what broke free of that is engaging in the other side. You got to look at what you're fearful of. You know, for most of my youth, I was afraid to look at anything. Wouldn't read books, wouldn't watch movies, wouldn't do anything. And it's only when you start to look at the other side, when you perceive things, and then you recognize that it's not the boogeyman. In every single case I've gone, right? They tell you that something is satanic. It's not Satan, it's Saturn. And when you look at Saturn, it's violent, it's time, but it is not, it's that force of generative creation that keeps everything moving. That thing that frees us, that ushers in the golden age, that black sun at the birth of creation that unites us all, right?
Well,
is that evil and ugly?
Yeah, the demiurge is the worker. It's the work. It's the thing you've got to do. It's the opus.
Two sides.
I mean, his wife.
Two sides.
His wife is ops. His wife is ops, which means to do the work. Do the work. You've got to. You know what are we all going to do? Sit on a sun lounger all day and drink cocktails? No, yeah, let's do that. Actually, let's go back to that Saturnian golden age and do fuck all.
Right. It's the force that keeps you moving forward. Right. If you don't move and you don't adapt and you don't change, then there's nothing but stagnation, right? Without Saturn, nothing exists.
I got a question for Dion. Dion, they're going to outlaw porn, and I just want to know, what are your impressions of making porn illegal?
You know, most of the hits of the IP addresses come out of Utah. So it's in the most repressed states that most of the people are going to that. Yeah, you can't make everything illegal. They can try. You know, you could try to make this thing happen. It's only gonna, like Ryan says, we're gonna have a pendulum effect. The more you tell us to go to sleep at 10 o'clock and cut your hair, and women can't do this and women can't do that, and we got to build a wall against anybody that's not white. It's going to backfire. It is going to backfire. You know, if anything, if I could say that assassination attempt was kind of a statement of that, you know, whether it was done by somebody good, somebody bad, somebody on the left side, the right side, you know, it happens.
It's like the amount of energy there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like there's so much energy charged up. It needs to burst.
It's going to happen. And so, yeah, it's going to happen. So that's why I made peace with it. After I saw him being crowned as the emperor, I'm like, all right, I'll move on. Because I know that it's powerful chaos magic and meme magic that they're using to plant into people's subconscious. So you can't win somebody that's immortal. So
I think that stuff happens whether they intend it or not. There's such big events, and everything's on a screen now and memorized for you, and you know, a talisman's or a sigil's made out of it instantly. Whether they intend it or not, it's a magical talisman.
Yeah, and what's weird is I saw videos of the people in the audience that saw the shooter on the roof, and they're pointing to him like, "Hey, look, there's a guy on the roof with the gun." And they're telling the Secret Service, and they're like, "Hey, kick back!" And they're like, "No, he's on the roof right there for like 3 or 4 minutes." They're even making videos of it, and And they let the show go on. And even after they shot him, they still let him. He said, "Hey, I want to get my shoes." They let him get his shoes. They let him like speak. Yeah,
He had to get his photo op, right?
Yeah. They
offered that image that you said was so badass, Ryan.
I think it was cool. I really do. I mean, to pull yourself together enough. If that was real, if none of that was set up. It is
real. Even illusion is real. Even if you try to stage some fuckery, it's still real. This is all real. And the fact that a church can now turn it into a mythology is real too. So that's why
I have a thing.
We'll move on to other mythologies. There's other shit coming. He's not the only god in the pantheon. So if he wants to play God, he's going to have to play by the rules. So we'll just see what happens.
Yeah. I was going to say, I always say that the kind of magic, that misdirection that you see on the stage of a magician, on a stage magician's stage, you also see exactly the same kind of trickery on the world stage. Those two forms of magic are completely comparable, and there's no difference in the tricks apart from the theatre that it's played out in. One's the world stage and one's your stage, but it all involves an audience. It all involves signifiers, and it all involves an apparent something while something else is going on in the background.
Yeah. I wanted to address some of this porn nonsense ban, because it's such a ridiculous thing. And it's like, they're never going to ban anything. We all understand the nature of the internet. A kid is going to just get a VPN and go and find the pornography they want. What is really going to happen from this kind of ban? They're going to destroy legitimate websites which protect the public, which try to remove extreme violence and try to remove illicit images that were stolen. All this is going to do is abuse people, also remove legitimate income. It's going to take people who could live their lives and feed themselves through things like OnlyFans and Pornhub and make that shit illegal. That's all it's going to do. It's going to hurt working people, and it's going to drive people to the darkest dredges, the evilest corners, to be exposed to abuse.
And rape will go up, and domestic abuse and violence will go up.
I was going to ask why. What is the advantage? What is the advantage of banning pornography, of doing what monism has always done, canceling out that sexual image? What's the advantage of it? The advantage is just what Dion said. You're going to create a bunch of rapists, right? Why do you think the Greeks have those temples where that stuff can be done? Not only for education, but for your brain, for normalcy, right? Then you don't end up with some kind of weapon killing people, right? Oh God, why isn't it's funny that it's always that avenue they fight?
Even if you couldn't pay the priestesses, there are tales of the young men who would go into the temple of Athena and wank it on her statue to the point where the statue was perpetually stained on the feet. Perpetually stained.
Lovely.
What a compliment, isn't it? Wouldn't you love to go to church and, come to climax there with beauty and you know what I mean? What's wrong with that, right? Well, in order for the monism to exist, that can't exist.
I was going to say, it smells like a fish market. That's what's wrong with doing that.
What do you think incense is for, Ryan?
Not caring about the fish market.
Fumigation.
Right, but we also see this thing too, right? Where if you look back at ancient summer and you read some of the stories about these poet priestesses, these women who were independently wealthy, who had palatial palaces and were sustained via suitors, right? This is our modern internet culture that we see with OnlyFans, and that's flipping beautiful. I don't care what anyone says. Simping is great. Go have some fun. Go support these women. Like, holy crap, man. You know what? You know how many single moms I know who can support their kids through freaking OnlyFans? It's goddamn beautiful. It saves lives, man. I don't care. Like, it's beautiful. And also, so many gay and trans friends. It's like you're already doing this stuff. This is a safe way. You can do it in your own home on your own terms. Like, why would the government come after this if not to just hurt people?
Tissue manufacturers as well. Tissue manufacturers comes to mind. Also socks for the desperate.
So, question for you, Ryan. You got any new videos coming out on your channel?
Yes, I do. I've just finished my very explicit tarot deck. Not explicit as in it's got naughty parts in it, although it does have that because it's tarot. But very explicitly profaned, as Ammon would say, tarot. So hopefully it'll be on Kickstarter next week. But I've just finished a small but very compact and special effects and editing laden video for everybody of me jumping around and making a fool of myself.
And so when your Kickstarter comes out, if people get a hold of that and donate to that, that'll help you get this fabulous tarot deck out to the world.
Well, Dion, what's going to happen is I'm going to force you and Snappy to put me on here, and we're going to do a tarot episode where I basically show off, if that's all right.
Love it. Love it.
And then I'm going on Lady Babylon and taking that over.
Like an artist studio, right? You know, you've created an artist studio, and somebody's going to come and show their work. That's real. I like that. That's progression. You know what I mean? And yeah, they'll come after you. You know, I didn't mean to laugh, because they're going to come after people, right? It's how it always works. And this is the fear that people should have. You should have a healthy fear of an overpowered tyrant with a group, a minority, but still a big one, that's able to repress and kill and torture and imprison in an extrajudicial way. Remember this term that is coming. People talk about the election and yeah, right, it's coming. Guess what? The next person who's in the White House will be completely immune from prosecution. You know what that means? We have never, ever, ever had that. Nixon was a schoolboy compared to what is coming now. You know, people thought, oh, the curve would be more gentle. Nope, that's not how the slide of tyranny works. Right? Oh God, that's my
question for you, Ammon.
Yeah.
What kind of videos you got coming next?
Oh,
anything that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, I'm going to take.
You're on break too.
I'm going to take this week to channel all of my efforts into one live session this Friday, which will be Project Talos, and it's a glimpse. It's a glimpse into the future. Love it. It's absolutely wonderful. So that's all I'm up to, that and reading Greek and teaching people. I got to teach people, continue pounding people, you know, to get them to learn the Greek. Love it.
Are you talking about the largest Greek class, ancient Greek class in the world?
In the universe. No. Yeah, no. In the known universe, right? There may be a planet out there, right, that's got a bigger one, but of all the planets that we know, right? Yes. We have the largest Greek program going, and we literally have hundreds of people, right? We regularly get 800 people, sometimes 1,300. Who are at Ammon U, and people who are interested. Of those, you know, some are just interested in the translation side, but our TAs are working with dozens of people to go through exercises, and we always have a standing group that's bigger than any Greek class I've ever witnessed by far. This is, you know, your average university will have, you know, 20 Greek grad students if it's well funded, right? So this is just fantastic. It's a movement, and it's free, people. You know why it's free? Because I cannot have the antidote and charge you for it, right? That would be me being not sacred. The devil would bend me over for that one, right? You have to be true to that voice, that Eve. And I love that. So yeah, come and see at Lady Babylon on Wednesdays. This Wednesday we're not going to be having class, right? Just Friday we're going to be out. Ammon U's on summer break, but we'll be back next week. And things are going to get faster and faster and faster. I just can't wait. It's gorgeous, man. It's absolutely freaking gorgeous. And hail Satan. Everybody honor the muse, and let's watch this gorgeous, gorgeous tragedy play out. I love it.
Amazing. I just also want to remind our audience that if anyone is interested in the extra Greek classes or in talking with any of us here, we're all on the Myth and Lore Discord, which you can find a link in the description. That's where you'll find the TAs and the extra Greek classes. Ryan has a channel, Dion has a channel, and I have a channel. We're all moderators there as well. So it's a good community. Come hang out with us. Say hi. In terms of stuff that we have on the channel here, next Saturday, I'm going to be doing a deep dive with Graham into the Hymn to King Helios by Emperor Julian. We're going to get into some Neoplatonic wildness and some Phoenician stuff. One of the cool things about the Hymn to King Helios is he references the Phoenicians 3 times in this as having the oldest rites and talking about this Lucifer stuff, connecting to this purple. So we're going to go into some real cool wildness on Saturday. That'll be fun. Dion and I plan to bring back more Occult Explorers. If you liked this show, this is what you can expect. Dion bringing his perspective. Do you have any ideas in the works for more Occult Explorers?
Oh, yeah. We're going to get into the whip, the mastigo, how that works with the spirits. And yeah, it'll get deep. We got some stuff planned.
Lots of fun. And as always,
Ammon likes whip.
Yeah.
Ammon likes whips, don't you, Ammon? He's got a bit of a thing for a whip. Show us your whip, Ammon. Get your whip out.
Show us your whip.
Your whip.
Yeah. No, when is that? That's next Saturday.
Yeah.
Oh, who knows? Yeah, next Saturday.
Okay, good. I want to be there. I don't have to be there. I can be in the chat, but I want to see. I want to see this because anything that looks into the whip and that, which everybody would say, oh, this is pure darkness. This is pure masochism, right? Sadistic stuff. You overlook a whole bunch of ancient history and how that whip is used and what it becomes, what religious symbol it becomes. So I can't wait. That's gorgeous. Yeah, bring on the whips.
Beautiful. All right, everyone. This was so much fun. Thank you guys for joining us. Does anyone have final words to leave our audience with tonight? I guess no one does. What do you got to say?
I'll say, get ready. I'll say, get ready. Hold on, and never look away from that Aegis. That's the power. If you wear that Aegis, you can be satisfied with fighting for what is beautiful. You know what I mean? For not giving in. You can look your ancestors in the face, right? Everybody thank your friggin' ancestors, right? It turns out you got to answer to all of them. Isn't that weird? Like they're watching. That's how the Greeks portrayed it. They're right now on some kind of television and they're watching what we're doing and they're getting pissed off, right? Or they're getting proud. So yeah, let's do that. Let's choose the latter of the options and hail Satan.
All right. Amazing, everyone. Thank you so much. Until next time, take care. Hail Satan.
Peace out.